Let's take a look at graphing a function based on the number that is the base of your exponent. Okay? So if you have the function y equals a times b to the x, so that's sort of our general form of exponential function. Okay? Assuming that a doesn't play a role at all, a is just some multiplier, it's the stretch and compression multiplier. But if we look at b, if you take the absolute value of b and it's greater than 1, then you're going to have this growth-like pattern of exponential function. So if your base is a number greater than 1, again, disregarding the sign, so we can just look at the absolute value of that, then your y-intercept is always a 1. Okay? And your basic form is going to look like this. It's going to go up and to the right. Okay? So the way that you're going to look at all of these functions is the following. You're going to be looking at 3 key elements, because when you sketch these graphs, you're going to do 3 things. The first thing that you're going to do is find the horizontal asymptote. Okay, so in this case, the horizontal asymptote for this function is y equals whatever the vertical shift is. If you remember, vertical shifting happens outside the function. So if there's anything that is happening outside here, that's where your horizontal asymptote is going to be. So the first thing we would do is sketch our horizontal asymptote here. And then the second thing that you're going to do is you're going to find 2 key points. The first key point is going to be the value that makes x equal to 0. Okay, so if you take the power or the value of x to make the power equal to 0, that's the first key point that you're going to identify. So in this particular case, when we let x, or what value does x have to be so that the total power is 0? It's just 0, right? There's nothing being added or subtracted or multiplied inside. So we plug in 0, and 4 to the 0 power has the value of 1. So that would be your first point. And then the second key point that you're going to use is you're going to shift 1 to the right or 1 to the left. Okay. So we're going to add or subtract 1 to the x, depending on whether we have a base that is greater than 1 or a base that is less than 1. Okay. So what we see here is this form right here. If the b value is less than 1 or is greater than 1, it's going to have the pattern of growth. Okay, so if this has a pattern of growth, we're going to go 1 to the right. Okay, and so if we take 1 point to the right of x, 1 to the right of 0 is 1. We plug that in. 4 to the first gives you a value of what? 4. So 1, 4. We plot that second point. And once we do this, we will have our graph. Okay? The graph is going to self-generate once you put your asymptote. That's the first thing you click on. Then you click your first point, 0, 1, and then your second point, 1, 4. And your graph will fill in, or the system will fill in the rest. Okay? Now, if our base is a number that's less than 1, we're still going to follow these same rules. We need 3 elements to complete our sketch. We first need our horizontal asymptote. So we see what's being shifted outside this function. Nothing. So it's just y equals 0. So that would be the first thing that we put into our graph. And then we're going to find our 2 key points. The first key point that we identify, again, is the value of x that makes your power equal to 0. So what value of x gives you a power of 0 here? 0. And then anything to the power of 0 has a value of 1. So again, we plot that point. And then the second key point is going to be 1 to the right or 1 to the left of this, depending on whether this base is greater than or less than 1. So if we have the absolute value of b that's less than 1, then we're looking at a decay pattern. Okay? Our graph isn't going to open this way now. What's going to happen is it's going to open down the other direction. Okay? So here we're going to move -1, since the absolute value of b is less than 1, and -1 to the left, we get a -1. And when we plug in a -1, what happens is 1/6 to the -1, what does that negative power do to our base? It flips it, so this becomes 6 to the first, giving us the base, or the order pair -1, 6. And so once we plot those two things, we'll get our graph, and that's what your graph would look like. Okay? So you have a growth pattern where the b value is greater than 1. You have a decay pattern where the value of the base is less than 1.